In this video, we're going to look at increasing and decreasing intervals of a function. So we have some very mathematical definitions here. A function f is increasing on an interval if for any 2 points in the interval a positive change in x results in a positive change in f of x, which is just a very sophisticated way of saying as you move from left to right across the function, your y values or your f of x values are getting bigger or increasing. Similarly with decreasing, as we move from left to right across the function, the y values are getting smaller or decreasing. A constant interval obviously is going to then be 1 as we move from left to right across the function. The y value stays constant or does not change. When we talk about our intervals of increasing and decreasing, we're always going to give them in terms of our x values. So looking at some examples here, we can see this first graph as I move from left to right across it. My y values are getting bigger, so we're increasing. This graph is increasing constantly or increasing over its whole domain, which would be negative infinity to positive infinity. The second graph here is going to be a constantly decreasing function. So this is getting smaller here, although it is very slowly. So again, this graph is going to be decreasing over its whole domain. So from negative infinity to positive infinity. The next graph here is just a horizontal line. So it is a constant function, again, over its whole domain, which is going to be negative infinity to positive infinity. The last graph is a little more interesting in terms of increasing and decreasing intervals. As we start on this graph and we're tracing it, we are going, decreasing. So we're decreasing from all the way to the left, which would be negative infinity, until we reach this point right here, which is -2. After that point, we're going to change and we're tracing this graph and it's constant. So as we're moving from left to right, our y values are not changing, and that is happening from the -2 over to the +2. Notice we're using the square brackets here because those points actually exist. And then finally, as we trace the last part of this graph, we are increasing, our y values are getting bigger, and that's happening from this +2 value going all the way to the right forever, so to positive infinity. If we take a look at another example here, we're going to flip over to this graph for a minute. As we trace along the point here of this piecewise function, and I'm moving this point so that my x values are moving from left to right, what you can notice here is that my y values are getting smaller. So we went from 6 to 5 to 4. So my y values are getting smaller, so we're decreasing so that from negative infinity until we get to this minimum point here, we are decreasing. Once we pass this point, now my y values are getting bigger, so they're increasing. So now we're doing an increasing interval. And as we continue here, we're going to jump up to this next piece of this graph. And here my y value is staying constant at 5. So this is a constant region. And then as we keep going, we move back over to here where my y values are getting smaller. So I am again decreasing, and I would be decreasing forever. So we would continue over there forever. So if we're going to list the increasing, decreasing, and constant values of this graph, notice that we're using the interval notation. So as we started on this graph, we said we were decreasing until we got to this point here. So we need to know that x value, and that is an x value of 0. So we're decreasing from negative infinity to 0. I'm going to put the square bracket on the 0 because that point exists. If that was an open circle, then we would use the parenthesis. So remember, then this next section is where I'm increasing until I get to this point. Remember, what I'm concerned about is my x coordinate, and that is happening at 2. So from 0 to 2, I'm increasing. I'm going to put the square bracket on the 0 because remember that point exists. Here I have an open circle, so we're going to do the parenthesis. And then this next section, we said we were constant. So we're constant from this x value of 2 over to this x value, which would be 4. So I'm going to be constant from 2 over to 4. Pay attention to the graph. There's a closed circle on the 2, so I'm going to put the square bracket there, an open circle on the 4, so we're going to put the parenthesis there. And then this final section of the graph, we are decreasing, so we're going down, and we're going to go forever to the right. So I'm going to add that to my decreasing section, so I'm going to use the union symbol there, and we're decreasing from this value of 4 going forever to the right, so to infinity. And then again, I'm going to check the 4. The 4 has a closed circle on it, so I'm going to use the square bracket. And then we're going to take a look at 2 more examples here. So as I look at this first graph, remember, just kind of trace starting from the left. So from the left forever, I seem to be decreasing until I get to this point here. My concern, remember, is my x coordinate, which is 3. So I'm going to be decreasing from forever to the left, so negative infinity to 3. That point exists there at 3, so I'm going to put the square bracket on that. After that, I am increasing. My y values are going up, and they're going up forever. So I'm going to be increasing from 3, that's a square bracket there, sorry, 3 to positive infinity. Coming over to this next graph, I start and I'm increasing. I get to this point, I'm still increasing, so they kind of put that point there to kind of throw us off. We're increasing all the way up to here, and then remember, my concern is this x coordinate. So we're starting here increasing region from negative infinity to 1. After that, I'm decreasing. Again, they kind of threw this 3 point in there to throw us off. We're going to keep decreasing until we get down to here. And this is where my concern is, the x coordinate. So we're decreasing from 1 over to 5, square brackets on both of those. And then finally, this last part of the graph, we're increasing, and that would be going forever. So I'm going to add that to the increasing section. So starting at the 5 and going forever to the right, so to infinity. So a key thing to remember is that when you're discussing intervals of increasing, decreasing, and constant, always give them in terms of the x value and try to trace your graph from left to right.